She was heaved up onto a pony at just 3 years old. When not much older and asked what she wanted to be when she grew up, the young Elizabeth replied, "I should like to be a horse." Until very recently, she rode frequently with trainer Terry Pendry and had not missed the Royal Windsor Horse Show since 1943. But it's her legacy in working to stamp out abusive practices in horse racing, which will continue to be celebrated by animal lovers all over the world. Here to discuss is Marty Irby, Executive Director of the Animal Wellness Action. Marty, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me this morning.
How did you first become aware of the support that the Queen provided in terms of animal welfare for horses?
Well, my good friend Monty Roberts, the man who listens to horses, met Queen Elizabeth in 1989. She actually summoned him to come to the UK and work with her horses, and she was so impressed, as was the Queen Mum, Monty told me, that she had him continue to come back and help work with her horses. And he has a method of training called join up, where he actually communicates with the horse through their own language that he learned by watching the wild horses communicate on the Western Range here in the United States. And he's applied that in his training techniques. And so Queen Elizabeth later became the patron of Join Up International and commissioned Monty to actually take this message and take these principles to 41 countries around the world in her name.
I've actually lost many hours watching Monty Roberts videos on YouTube. It's just amazing how he communicates with horses. And Marty, can you tell us a bit more about your background and the work that you do?
Yes, well, I grew up in the world of Tennessee walking horses, and there's a terrible abusive practice called soring, S-O-R-I-N-G, where they intentionally soar and hurt the horse's front feet to make them lift their legs higher. And I've been fighting against this most of my adult life. And about 17 years ago, Monty Roberts and I met. He came to Tennessee after he had just been with the Queen in England and worked with us for some time. We became very close friends and have been working to stamp out this practice ever since. And in 2020, he called me just after COVID hit, and he had me write a story about my own work and what I've been doing and what I went through. I had a terrible time when I spoke out for the horses and against horse abuse and had all kinds of unfortunate circumstances happen. And I put this document together, and Her Majesty actually read my life story, which that alone meant so much to me and validated so much of my work. And about 2 months later, it was a rainy August evening, I had a knock on my door and found a package from Windsor Castle marked Royal Mail. And within that package was a hand-signed award from Queen Elizabeth for honoring me for my work. So it was the greatest honor of my life, and we want to continue to carry out what she wanted and make her proud by helping save these horses from abuse.
Oh, Marty, that's so cool, but also so devastating to hear some of those stories of abuse. Soaring, I hadn't heard about that practice. That's awful. When you say as well did you face some abuse as well for the work that you do? Is that what you meant by the implications before?
I did. I had many death threats and threats of physical violence and had to actually move away from Tennessee to Washington, D.C. because of all the violence. But we've been able to work beyond that and to work with the horse racing industry in the U.S. And I know Her Majesty was very proud to see, even though she could not be involved in, the making of any federal laws in our country, the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act that we had signed into law in December of 2020 here in the U.S., and that banned the use of all drugs on race day in the United States because we had a serious, serious problem there. We still have some problems, but we're now beginning to implement the new law and enforce the new law, and I think that we're going to see a better life for horses all over the U.S. and all around the world because of the Queen.
It's crazy what people do to horses. What I don't understand. So the motives, I suppose, in racing is what money and adrenaline and speed money. I suppose everything comes back to, right? Right,
it is. So ultimately, they run faster when they're given certain drugs. In the U.S., one drug in particular, Lasix, which is a diuretic that is intended for people who have high blood pressure, that actually makes a horse shed off water weight right before they run, and in a very brief period of time makes them run faster. Well, over time, once they have to shed this water weight off because of this drug, it actually makes their bones brittle because it dehydrates them, and then they become more susceptible to fractures, microfractures, and things like that. And then trainers come back and start adding pain masking agents to cover up those fractures and are running unsound horses. And those are the horses that we see here in the U.S. that are dying on tracks all across America at just an embarrassing rate, quite honestly.
It just makes me feel sick, but I'm so glad that there are people out there like you, Marty, who are working to help these horses, and with the support of Her late Majesty as well, the Queen. That's Marty Irby, the Executive Director of Animal Wellness Action, doing phenomenal work out there where there are other just frankly evil, horrendous people doing the opposite. Tova. It is